Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.
Hey, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter, and welcome to Saturday Night Dialogues. It is January the 24th, 2026, and we have a very, very jam-packed call tonight with a lot of details and a lot of information that all of you that are listening to this are going to be very excited about, but also it should be also very informative to a lot of you who this may be the first time you're going to hear some of the things that you're going to hear tonight. But what we are going to do, as always, as Goldilocks has always done, we're going to share with you directly from the actual sources that are involved, responsible for the revaluation of currencies. Before that, we're going to get into some prayer, and then we will get into some quick, very, very quick announcements, and then we're going to open this call up and get going. Father God, we thank you for allowing us to be here one more time. Father, we would like to ask you for mercy and for covering of anyone and everyone that may be in the path of this storm, this winter storm that will be hitting various cities and states across the United States, that if they haven't already started, going to be coming tonight. We ask that you protect each and every person. We ask that you allow your guardian angels to surround and protect each and every person, their loved ones, their pets, their homes, their property, everything. We ask that you minimize the storm in any way, shape, or form to help protect the people. We ask that if anyone is in the position to help someone, we ask that you lean upon their hearts to help someone that might be in need, especially the elderly, those that are alone. We ask that you keep them protected. And if there is anyone necessary to be a guardian angel to go and help someone, we ask that you cover them as well to do so. We ask that you also cover and protect the public servants who are going to be out in the middle of the night, late hours, that may be also in the service need to help someone. And we ask that you keep everyone covered along this journey for the next several days. And we hope that each and every person makes it to the other side of this storm safe and sound. We ask that you cover us tonight as we go about this call. We ask that you lay it upon the hearts of each and every one to have a spirit of discernment that will allow them to receive, understand, comprehend everything that we're going to share with them tonight, so that they may be in a better position mentally, emotionally, and also financially to be prepared for this blessing that you're going to bestow upon each and every person. In your precious name, we pray. Amen. All right, folks, some real quick announcements. Of course, it's the Goldilocks QF Dialogues Room. That is where for a year and a half, we were open 12 hours. Yes, literally 12 hours per day, 6 days a week, pouring into the many, many people that came to seek the truth, received it, and many of them are now blessed with having relationships with the actual bankers who are involved with the RV, and they have relationships, contracts in place, agreements signed, trust accounts set up, debit cards received, so that once their funds come in, they can access their money. Many of these people that are already on this call as well, we thank you for them. These are the tribe members, not only those that were present on a regular basis daily, but for those quiet ones, those silent assassins, those lurkers that also took the steps that we shared in the Goldilocks QF Dialogues Room the 8 steps that were provided by the beautiful brunette Grand Jam, Glass Half Full, Wiley, myself, and the tribe. We put it all together, and people took the steps. And so that is the Goldilocks QFS Dialogues Room. That is a read-only room now. It got to a point, it wasn't necessary to be in there 12 hours a day, answering questions, pouring into people in the room, behind the scenes. We've done our part. Many of you have done yours. Then that room is now read-only. Then we have D's room, where D drops many articles from around the globe on the global financial system and the transpiring of what's happening. Then, last but not least, we have the podcast, the daily podcast, Goldilocks Global Banking News on YouTube, whereby we bring forth the daily Goldilocks articles in a podcast form in audio so that each and every one of you can listen to it wherever you are at any time. You can listen to it and you can get your daily updates. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, turn your notifications on so that you don't miss any of the daily updates. And that podcast, the Goldilocks Global Banking News, over 21,000 subscribers and climbing in a year and a half, over 83 countries that are tuned in, subscribing, and over almost right on the tip of 2.5 million views to the channel in a very short period of time. And we're excited. Many countries and many people around the world are tuning in. Now, folks, tonight, just so that you're aware, we are going to bring you, let me ask this question. I have a question, just thinking about a question. If you have a job and one of your coworkers tells you that you've been fired, they heard through a word of mouth, a little birdie told them through the grapevine that you've been fired. I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but I do know. I'm going to ask this question because I want many of you to think. If your coworker called you and told you in person that you're fired, would you just not show up for work the next day? Would you just believe what your coworker said? That coworker might want your job. They might want you to just not show up for work. Would you take their word for it? Or, which I know the or is what many of you would do because I know many of you sharp, intelligent, smart. You're going to want to contact your boss, HR, somebody. You want to go directly to the source and find out directly from the source if this is true that you've been fired. Would you not want to do that? Or would you just take the word of your coworker and not go to the source? My beautiful people, tonight, as always, we're going to bring you the facts with receipts that Goldilocks always shares about the RV directly from the source. The CBI is the source. The U.S. Treasury, source. The BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, source. World Bank, IMF, source. There are 4 major global agencies responsible overseeing the RVGCR. The International Monetary Fund is 1. The World Bank, 2. The Bank of International Settlements, 3. And then the U.S. Treasury. Although not a global institution, the U.S. Treasury is connected to every single country and their currency around the world. These are the 4 agencies, ladies and gentlemen, that Goldilocks has always shown, that we have always known oversees the RV. Why? Because those 4 agencies oversee every currency. Even the International Monetary Fund has done what are called Article 4 consultations for Iraq, for Vietnam, and every country. Article 4 consultations are the annual, sometimes biannual consultations that the International Monetary Fund does with countries and their economic policies, which include their currencies. We have done exclusive, detailed talks about exactly what these currencies are doing and how they're moving Goldilocks has shown the Article 4 consultations directly from the International Monetary Fund, the source. Just like when the International Monetary Fund several months ago gave Vietnam the green light in writing through their Article 4 consultation, letting Vietnam know that they can float their currencies, the Vietnamese dong. So tonight we're going to bring you directly from the sources their updates on what they are putting out in writing about their currencies revaluing. Iraq has announced plans to go international. It's directly from the Central Bank of Iraq. Is it not the source? Or is it your coworker or the janitor or someone at the lunch counter that told you about what Iraq is doing? No, this is directly from the Central Bank of Iraq. For those that may not know, every single country around the world, every currency is governed by the central bank of that country. The Central Bank of Iraq is the source. We will bring that to you tonight. Also, Goldilocks shares report of how currency exchange rates change. Investopedia. Investing.com. The actual sources that explains exactly how even the IMF, Goldilocks shared directly from the IMF on how currency exchange, the currencies move in the global markets. So we will share on how currency rates change tonight from the source. You'll be able to connect the dots from Iraq. Then Vietnam's RV outlook as well. We're going to share the latest that Goldilocks dropped from Vietnam. Then also, last but not least, the money, the unlimited money, the dinero, the funds that are being pumped into the global banking systems directly from the actual banking sources. You'll be able to connect the dots tonight. You will be able to get an understanding tonight of where you stand with your investment. The young lady, the peculiar ram of them all. Are you here? I did not see you come in. If you can,
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
You always sneak in the back door. I look for you to raise your hand. You doing all right?
I'm doing fine. Get ready for the storm. It ain't much happening
Yes.
right now, but preparing.
Yes.
Preparation is key.
I know your number. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to this call. Peculiar Ram. She usually reads between her and the sniper Mike, and they usually do us. These are members from the room. These are actual members. These are not paid actors. These are actual members that have followed the steps. They came up in the room. They were following. They asked questions on a consistent basis. They established relationships with the actual bankers, following our guide and our steps. If you want to know how prepared Peculiar Ram is, not only is she prepared for the RV with her actual direct relationships with her banker whom she's met. Not only has she met her banker, she met his daughter. The banker met her daughter.
Yep.
Her banker traveled 2.5 almost hours to come meet with her in her city at the mall at a nail salon.
Yeah.
Because it was convenient, because your daughter had like what was it? It was some sort of event your daughter had to go to. She had to get her nails done and hit. What was it?
It was during a parade, the weekend of our annual parade, and it just so happened that his family has family near me, and they were coming down for a family gathering funeral, I believe it was, and we decided to kind of make the best of that situation, and it was the best meeting that I have had in my life, honestly.
And before you met him, you and the wealth advisor, you had spoke over the phone via Zoom a few times, and he had told you via Zoom that his wife has currency.
Yes.
If I recall. Yeah. So folks, she's prepared.
I'm sorry. Let me correct. He let me know that information when we met in person.
Oh, in person. Okay.
Yes. About his wife. He couldn't do too much over over the Zoom
The
calls,
phone.
but
Right,
it
right.
was important to get him face to face so that way he could, give me more information and become more comfortable with me. So that's why I say it was one of the best meetings, in-person meetings that I've had, because I was nervous at first, but, with the mall and everything kind of be very like a chilled environment, I was able to, you know, be myself and allow him to be himself. And from
Right.
there, I mean, we've been kicking it.
Beautiful. 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 So, folks, she's just one of the many examples of meeting the actual source. Her wealth manager and his firm, they're one of they actually send out newsletters of what's transpiring with emerging market currencies to their clientele base. His firm is heavily involved in the international world of currencies. That's her source. So not only is she prepared there, but she's also prepared. See, she's prepared. She's prepared for the storm tonight with her glass of wine, her bottle. It's ready. That's all.
It's chilling right now.
I know it is. I know it is. You ready? Let's get rocking and rolling, because we have a lot to cover tonight. And folks, we're gonna drop first and foremost. Speaking of the actual source, this is why we're very blessed to have access to whereby the Trump administration was able to allow it to come to the Goldilocks team. This particular straight from the source article from Politico of April of 2024, months before the election when President Trump was reelected. And here it is. Quote, currency revaluation is likely to be a priority for some members of a potential second Trump administration, mainly because of the viewpoint that an overvalued dollar contributes to the trade deficit. Trade. You're going to hear this consistently and all the time when you are on this call, you listen to any of the podcasts, because if you want to know about the RV, all you got to do is watch the water, like Goldilocks has always said. Where does currencies move in value? On the water. When countries trade, imports and exports, goods and services amongst each other, billions daily, literally, ladies and gentlemen, billions daily, they trade on the water. Now, how do they pay for it? How do they pay for these goods and services? In currency. So when the Trump administration is saying that President Trump's priority, his second administration, in writing, this is a quote, currency revaluation. Folks, it's saying the RV is a priority of his second administration. Then it continues by weakening the dollar could have far-reaching approach. So when you hear this, you see this tonight. Everything that is going to follow from this point forward on this call, like every last one of them, from the actual source, from the CBI, from the IMF, from Vietnam. CBI is the Central Bank of Iraq, for those that may not know. How currency rates move, the money moving to the banking system, ladies and gentlemen, it's all connected to trade. We're going to bring you and show you the actual sources. You have the opportunity to, on your own time, to read the actual information. The links are here always for you to dissect everything. This is not no third party. It's not your coworker. The actual sources. So now we're going to go straight. Speaking of currency exchange, just a quick little bit of education, on how currency exchange rates move. And this is it directly that Goldilocks shared this week. Foreign exchange rates. Folks, this is how the rates that will forthcome are derived. Some of the things that you're going to hear tonight, folks, that may be new. It's going to be some of the things you're going to hear tonight is new to your ears, new to your spirit. But I ask this, like in the beginning in prayer, for God to give you the discernment. I also ask the question of whether or not you would just believe what someone is telling you, like your coworker, or would you rather get the information from the source? Pay attention when you get this information from the source about the RV and the currencies from which you hold. Foreign exchange rates, the role of monetary policy and trade flows, from investing.com and Bloomberg, based on the report this week, stating foreign currency exchange rates fluctuate primarily due to supply and demand in the Forex market, driven by two key forces. Number one, monetary policy of each country. So the monetary policy of Iraq, the monetary policy of Venezuela, the monetary policy of Vietnam, the monetary policy of Canada, Mexico, Russia, Iran, China, Philippines, Malaysia, doesn't matter. Their monetary policy. Just like last week, we shared from Goldilocks that directly from the CBI on their monetary policy of shutting down currency exchange centers. We're going to share from the CBI tonight, Central Bank of Iraq, and their monetary policy of going international. That's number one. Trade. Then number two, trade flows. Trade flows? Currency evaluation is likely to be priority of the second Trump administration, large in part to an overvalued dollar and the trade deficit. For those that may probably didn't hear it before, the trade deficit, for example, the United States losing billions in our trade. This is the key reason why Trump imposed tariffs on countries around the world. Tariffs are taxes on the water through trade, so that the U.S. will stop the bleeding of our deficit. It continues. While these interact constantly, meaning the monetary policy and trade flows, monetary policy often triggers rapid changes in exchange rates, whereas trade balances exert more gradual, ongoing pressure. Then, how monetary policy drives changes. So, folks, this is why the Central Bank of Iraq and the government of Iraq last year and the year before implemented certain reforms, and these reforms passed through a democratic process to be passed by their parliament. That became monetary policy that the Central Bank of Iraq adopted, because the Central Bank of Iraq, based on the Central Bank of Iraq and their consultations and also their mentorship by two important agencies. Number one, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and number two, the Oliver Wyman Consulting Firm, which is the consulting firm for the World Trade Organization in all their countries. So they share a best practices, meaning Oliver Wyman and the IMF, which each and every country. And those countries come up with policies, monetary policies that they take before their government to pass through, hopefully to pass through law and become reforms. This is what Iraq did. This is what Vietnam did, and several other countries. So you want to know how currency exchange rates move? Central banks influence. Goldilocks shares. Central banks influence exchange rates, mainly through interest rates and money supply. Central banks influence exchange rates. Raising interest rates attracts foreign capital, seeking higher returns, boosting demand for the currency and causing it to what? Appreciate, meaning appreciate in value. I'm going to read this again. Raising interest rates attracts foreign capital. This is foreign investors, which we know now are flocking to Vietnam. They're especially going to be flocking to Venezuela now that Maduro has got his butt kicked by Trump, and other countries and also Iraq, where foreign investors are flocking to these countries because of the interest of their currencies and the interest of investment opportunities. I'm not speaking about interest rates in this context. I'm speaking about the value of these countries has created a global interest of investors. It continues. Conversely, expansionary policies that increase money supply can fuel inflation, weakening the country's currency. Central bank announcements such as rate hikes frequently lead to immediate market reactions due to shifting expectations and speculation. I'm going to read that again, and something that all of you here in the United States will understand. Central bank announcements such as rate hikes. This also can include not only rate hikes, interest rate hikes, but also interest rate cuts frequently lead to immediate market reactions due to shifting expectations and speculation. Folks, here in the United States, when the Federal Reserve a couple of weeks ago cut interest rates, they cut the rates. I think it was 25 basis points, I think it was 25 basis points. The markets reacted. This is common. It was the central bank, the Federal Reserve, that is solely responsible for it, and it affects the U.S. dollar, just like the Central Bank of Iraq. And what they do affects the dinar. Central Bank of Vietnam, and what they do affects the diggity dong. There is no other source, no other force but the central banks that have full monetary responsibility of a country's currency. Oh, just like several weeks ago when it was the Central Bank of Iraq that announced the dinar as being 1,300. It was not a co-worker, a department, a parliament member, an attorney. It was the central bank directly. And the rates, folks, are determined through supply and demand on the water through trade. And the central bank then determines, okay, now we can set the rate to X or to Z based on what's happening in the global markets. But what countries like Vietnam and Iraq have done through passing laws that are digital asset regulation laws, and now we're moving into a new digital asset-based banking system, it allows currencies to begin to move differently. And President Trump's tariffs, as a large part, is what's causing many rates to move. The monetary policies of these countries are enforced, and they're constantly changing for the better of these countries. As these countries like Iraq and others continue with their consultations with the IMF, the World Trade Organization, and many others, you don't think the central banks of Iraq, the central banks of these countries, you don't think they are in preparation for their rates to move? They have to. The new banking system, they must adopt. They must adapt because of the new digital banking system. And these countries, as Goldilocks has shown directly from the sources for months, how these countries, yes, Iraq, Vietnam, and others, Venezuela and others, they are moving away from the U.S. dollar because the U.S. dollar is getting weaker. And they're now shifting to utilize their own currencies through trade. And as they utilize their own currencies, this is the increase in the demand for their currencies in the open global markets where the rates move. I'll continue. Goldilocks shares how trade drives changes. This is changes in rates. Trade flows affect currencies through exports and imports. Strong exports increase demand for a country's currency, as foreigners need to pay for goods, leading to appreciation in the value of their currencies. Persistent trade surpluses, exports and imports, strengthen a currency over time, while deficits, imports, exports, tend to weaken it by increasing supply and domestic currency in the market. This is what happened in the U.S. and why, for example, we've shown several times where in 2020, the end of 2024, this is why, one of the reasons why Vietnam was one of the first countries to come to the table and want to beg President Trump to negotiate on the tariffs, because that was in mid 2025, because at the end of 2024, on the books, it showed that Vietnam's trade deals with the U.S. resulted in Vietnam having $123 billion surplus in trade with the U.S. And do you know what the U.S.'s trade surplus with Vietnam was in return? There was no deficit. There was no surplus. It was a deficit of $123 billion to the U.S. But now, as it states, while deficits tend to weaken a country's currency. This is why the US dollar is getting weaker, because all of the deficits that the US has encountered with countries around the world. This is why in 2017, when the reporter asked President Trump very directly, President Trump, what are you going to do about the by countries devaluing their currencies? His response, and as sharp, as intelligent as he always is, his immediate response was, we're going to level the playing field. He came back his second term. How is he leveling the playing field? Tariffs imposed on these countries. These countries now have to rely on their own currencies and trade. What does that do? It increases the demand for their currencies in the global markets. What does that do? It increases the rates. That is leveling the playing field. Currency revaluation is likely to be priority of the second Trump administration, large in part to the trade deficit. Next, the interplay between the two, meaning deficits and surpluses. Monetary policy decisions often consider trade impacts. A stronger currency can hurt exporters, while trade conditions may prompt policy adjustments. Ultimately, both forces shape exchange rates. Ultimately, both forces shape exchange rates. Ultimately, both forces shape exchange rates through ongoing supply-demand dynamics, creating complex and dynamic adjustments in the Forex market. This is directly from investing.com that Goldilocks is sharing. Source, Bloomberg, source. The currency converter on source. This is not a coworker telling you that you lost your job, you've been fired by demand. This is directly from source. Goldilocks has always shown directly from the source. We've always brought it to our members so that the members can have the proper, correct information from the source. And we educate them on how to establish the relationships with the banking sources in preparation for the RV instead of sitting back and waiting. Now we're going to go directly to, speaking of source, we're going to go directly to the Central Bank of Iraq. Folks, this is going to be very detailed what we're about to share with you. Sit down, relax, have a glass of wine like Peculiar Ram, and get ready. Oh, not only you, Peculiar Ram, but also Brunette Grand, our lovely, beautiful Brunette Grand, and her saucy glass of wine. Folks, we're going to share this directly from the Central Bank of Iraq. Goldilocks is going to share it, and then we're going to go. Speaking of the Central Bank of Iraq, we're going to click into the link from the Central Bank of Iraq and the press release from January the 20th. From the Central Bank of Iraq, from the source on their plans of going international. You ready, young lady?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
The Central Bank of Iraq's 2025 training initiatives, led by the Banking Study Center under Dr. Mustafa Munir, represent a key pillar in the broader effort to modernize the country's banking sector. By achieving 98% implementation rate in its strategic training plan, the center focused on building human and institutional capacities aligned with international standards, including Financial Action Task Force, FATF, compliance for anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing, Basel III regulations for stronger capital and liquidity requirements, and international financial reporting standards for transparent financial reporting.
Pause, beloved. Pause for the cause, beloved. Folks, from the Central Bank of Iraq. This is we're gonna take you right to the source. We're gonna go right to boss man. Here in a little bit. This is a quote that Goldilocks shared from the Central Bank of Iraq press release. We're going to go directly to the press release here in a minute. But this says the Central Bank of Iraq 2025 training initiative. See, Goldilocks had been sharing quite some time last year about the training that Iraq was doing, even with the training, the mass training that the Central Bank of Iraq initiated with many of not only the central bank itself, but various banks throughout Iraq, private banks as well, extensive training on digital banking and extensive training on foreign currency exchange. And they are telling you the training initiatives led by Banking Studies Center, Dr. Munir, represent a key pillar in the broader effort to modernize the country's banking sector. This is to modernize Iraq's banking sector. In order for the dinar to go international, would it not need to be modernized with the new modernized banking system? Would the dinar be able to revalue in that old Flintstone dusty system that was the old banking system, whereby the central bank can manipulate rates, devalue currencies? That is not permitted in the new banking system with technology that will be responsible for assuring the rates and the transparency of the new banking system. So when it's telling you that the modernizing, and this is now that I think about it, this is in alignment with what the central bank told us directly. Last year, Goldilocks, D, and myself had a conference call and update directly from the source, the Central Bank of Iraq. We actually reported it on several podcasts. Actually, there were in two different months, directly from the Central Bank of Iraq, where they shared with us directly about modernizing Iraq's banking system. This is where, for those of you who remember, this is where I joked with the Central Bank of Iraq about their people putting dinars under their mattresses because so many people in Iraq at that time didn't trust the banking systems in Iraq because it was old. But now the modernizing of their banking system is in preparation so that they can allow the dinar to go international. It had to be their banking system had to be modernized so that it would be able to synchronize with the new banking system. And that synchronizing with the new banking system is what enables the dinar, along with their reforms, along with other things as well, for the dinar to eventually go international. So then it's some very important information than what you read by Goldilocks. And it states, by achieving through the training, they trained their staff. They've been training for the last year and a half, 2 years. By achieving a 98% implementation rate, this is of their training, in its strategic training plan, it's telling you 98% of the training has been completed. I remember when we had our call with the CBI directly, they told us they were doing media campaigns for the people of Iraq, for their constituents, for the population, on the new digital banking system and the modernizing of their banking system. They wanted to raise the confidence of the people in Iraq to take their dinars from under their mattresses and bring them to the banking system, to deposit. In fact, now that I recall, they were even offering the citizens that if they were to deposit their money, their dinars, into the Iraqi banking system, they would get 5-6% return on their deposits, when before they got less than 1%. So to incentivize their citizens to deposit their money into the banking system, they asked them to do so with caveats, because they were trying to do what they should, is to get as many dinars off of the street as possible and into the digital banking system. This was the modernizing. I remember now I'm saying this, I remember where the central bank told us directly that prior to that call in 2023, 2022, less than 10% of the population at that time in Iraq had their money in the banking system. By the time we had this call last year with the central bank, it was over 60%. So this is the modernizing of the banking system by achieving 98% implementation rate. In a strategic training plan, the center focused on building human and institutional capacities aligned with international standards, including Financial Action Task Force. This is to modernize the banking system. This is to make sure the transparency of the banking system, anti-money laundering. This is to assure that they don't have these terrorists that are selling dinars all over the streets and in the back of their trucks and selling US dollars, choking the value of the Iraqi dinar. In compliance with, and it tells you, counterterrorism financing. Counterterrorism financing. Basel III regulations. This is whereby the dinar and every other currency around the world will be backed in a gold-backed and an asset-backed system. These programs delivering 12 international certification courses. Young lady, you can continue.
These programs delivering 12 international certification courses and 45 specialized workshops on topics like risk management, corporate governance, cybersecurity, digital transformation, and financial crimes equipped banking professionals across public and private institutions with globally recognized skills. Partnerships with reputable entities such as the Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, AAOIFI, and Frankfurt University further elevated training quality and fostered international cooperation.
Can you say that acronym again? No, I'm just playing with you. I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
Such reforms lay foundational groundwork for potential Iraqi dinar appreciation by addressing long-standing weaknesses that undermine currency confidence and value.
Okay. Folks, beloved, I want you to read this again. Take your time.
Yes.
The reforms that they are mentioning, this is directly from the Central Bank of Iraq. Goldilocks sharing it, of how the dinar will appreciate in value. This is nothing new. This is the same that we've been telling you because Goldilocks has been sharing it directly from them. Go ahead, young lady. Such reforms
lay foundational groundwork for potential Iraqi dinar appreciation by addressing long-standing weaknesses that undermine currency confidence and value.
So there were weaknesses in the dinar before this? So you mean to tell me, folks, the central bank wanted to make sure they addressed the weaknesses, but prior to meeting for the dinar to meet international standards? Does this not sound like a central bank in a country that is making wise choices and steps in order to revalue their currency? Is this not sound like a country in a central bank, the actual source that is following the steps given to them by the International Monetary Fund, one of the 4 agencies responsible on overseeing the revaluation of currencies? The steps given to them that they should follow by Oliver Wyman, the Oliver Wyman consulting firm that is also the global firm for the World Trade Organization and all the countries that are members of it. They had to address weaknesses. So, folks, weaknesses, just like if you think of a weakness in the body, let's think of a sickness. A weakness in the body is not addressed by masking the weakness through some sort of void that is filled, but you have to get the sickness or the disease or whatever it is, you have to address it. Now, I know we have many of folks here on this call that are evangelicals, born-again Christians. We've seen miracles in the church. Someone will have sickness and affliction, and they go in and the pastor, the preacher, the prophet is somebody, lay hand on them, and the sickness and affliction goes away. Miracles are real. Folks, somebody laying the hand on the Iraqi dinar doesn't make it go from weak to strong. Those weaknesses of the dinar had to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major weaknesses was in their reforms. One of the major weaknesses in all these people in the parallel market in Iraq selling dinar, the US dollar, all these currencies on the street, all over the place, choking the value of the dinar. But the key was the reforms. Laws, folks, laws. Reforms are laws. Before, there were no consequences for these people that were running rampant all over Iraq with the dinars and all the currencies. Iraq had no incentive to revalue the dinar when they can make billions daily on the street by selling US dollars. These were the people that finance the politicians. Do you think they'll just say, boom, kill the US dollar, let's just revalue the dinar? And you think the US Treasury, you think the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, do you think Israel, countries around the world would be okay with people on the streets of Iraq that will just become billionaires overnight? You don't think they'll become billionaires? If they got billions in dinar that they're selling at pennies on the dollar, what would happen if that dinar goes to $1 overnight? And they're involved in terrorist activities?
Mm.
The weaknesses had to be addressed. Iraq is telling you that they addressed them. Goldilocks has been sharing how these weaknesses were being addressed. Now we're at 98% of completing the training so that the weaknesses can become strong. The healing can begin so that when the healing begins, folks, that's the healing of the dinar once it's revalued. The healing doesn't begin after. The healing begins before. You got to address the weaknesses so that the strength can come, then healing can begin after. Mm-hmm. Same process, folks. You can continue, young lady.
Okay.
Enhance such reforms. I'm sorry. Right, so, enhance compliance and credibility.
Okay. Enhance compliance and credibility. Meeting FATF, Basel III, and IFRS standards reduces risks of international sanctions, improves anti-money laundering frameworks, and rebuilds correspondent banking relationships. This integration into the global financial system boosts foreign investor trust, attracts capital inflows, and supports a more stable exchange rate.
It supports a what? A more stable what?
Exchange rate.
Really? This integration into global financial systems boosts foreign investor trust, attracts capital inflows, which are the investors now flocking to Iraq. But also, folks, right before that, when she read, improves anti-money laundering. Folks, do you know what terrorists do? They launder money. Billions daily. Iraq's training and Iraq's reforms is to completely, as much as they possibly can, cut off the abilities of terrorists. That's what they're telling you, anti-terrorist activity and anti-money laundering reforms. I hope you're picking up. It's right there. Mm-hmm. I hope you're picking up what we're putting down, folks, directly from the source. And we're not done. We got more from the source we're going to go directly to so that you can have, some of you have a new view on your investment of the dinar, a little more confidence in your investment of the dinar, all coming directly from the source of the dinar, not a coworker, or a buddy, or someone telling you anything but directly from the source. Go ahead, young lady.
Stronger banking sector resilience. Upgraded risk management, governance, and digital capabilities enable banks to better manage liquidity, reduce non-performing loans, and expand lending to the private sector. A healthier financial system supports economic diversification beyond oil, potentially improving trade balances and foreign reserves, core drivers of currency strength.
A healthier financial system. Remember, folks, their financial system was sick and afflicted. Tomorrow's Sunday, and I know a lot of people ain't going to church because of the weather. But on your church bulletin, they have the sick and shut in.
Mm-hmm.
Iraq was sick and shut in for years because they were sick. That dinar was ill.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of praying for the dinar of a lot of folks. The prayer warriors were down on their knees, strong, praying for the dinar.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to pray for the reforms first, folks.
Yes.
Many people were praying for, I want to rate like they said it was. Pray for the disease to be healed so that once that is done, then they'll no longer be on the sick and shut in list. Go ahead, young lady.
I know that's right. Okay, let's see. Improved governance and efficiency. Professional development transforms the banking sector into a more effective intermediary, facilitating sustainable reforms and reducing vulnerabilities like excess liquidity or informal dollarization. This contributes to overall macroeconomic stability, low inflation, and a credible monetary policy framework under CBI oversight.
Under the Central Bank of Iraq's oversight, folks, they are doing everything possible to strengthen the dinar internally within the reforms within their country, first and foremost, in preparation for international standards. And they tell you that here shortly. We're going to go right to the Central Bank of Iraq and let them tell you themselves. But first, next paragraph, please.
Okay. While these efforts do not guarantee immediate or dramatic Iraqi dinar appreciation, the CBI has repeatedly emphasized no plans for major revaluation and prioritizes stability. They create structure. Go ahead.
Let me do this. They create structural conditions for gradual strengthening of the dinar over time. So what Goldilocks is stating is that the central bank isn't going to come out and just say, here, we're going to revalue the dinar on such and such date. No, they're going to show you like they've been doing everything they're doing now to prepare for it. And they're going to show, they're going to tell you here in a second that they're doing it in order to prepare to take the dinar international. So now what I'm going to do, folks, I provided a screenshot. 2 screenshots, as a matter of fact, and a link directly to the Central Bank of Iraq, where they are going to show you and tell you they're preparing for international standards. Now, folks, what I would like for you to do is to just, if you have any noise, background noise, try to minimize it, because I want you to listen and pay attention very, very closely. Go ahead, young lady. Are you going to read from the screenshot or the actual CBI website?
I'm on the actual link.
Gotcha. Appreciate it. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Yeah. Okay. Within the framework of the strategic role played by the Central Bank of Iraq in building human and institutional capacities and supporting sustainable banking reform paths, the Banking Study Center discussed what was accomplished in its 2025 training plan.
You can go right down to in the context, because we just read all of that previously.
In the context of strengthening international cooperation, the Center activated cooperation frameworks with a number of reputable regional and international institutes and training institutions, including the Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, the Egyptian and Jordanian Institutes of Banking Studies, the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, Frankfurt University, and international institutions specializing in compliance, risk management, auditing, and information systems.
Folks, auditing is a part of a process to have checks and balances. And it states in the context of strengthening international cooperation. Folks, this is directly from the Central Bank of Iraq telling you, in the context of them strengthening international cooperation, the center that which is the initiative for this training activated cooperation frameworks with a number of reputable regional and international institutes and training institutions, and they named them. Folks, Iraq reached out to several regional and institutional international institutions to help them in preparation for international standards. They didn't have to look far, because the IMF, the World Bank, the U.S. Treasury, the Fed, and several other institutions sought Iraq out, and Goldilocks shared that, and we shared that several times, where they met in several other countries, all in preparation for, I'm talking about within the last 2 years, to prepare Iraq for international standards. Furthermore, you can continue.
Furthermore, during 2025, the Center implemented 12 specialized training programs leading to international professional certifications in the areas of anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing, risk management, corporate governance, and banking compliance.
1 second. This is important, folks. During 2025, so they're telling you what they completed. They completed 12 training programs leading to international professional certifications, which means, folks, they passed compliance for not completely, but passed several compliances for international standards. So much so to receive international certifications. This is all related to the banking system. This is all related to the Iraqi dinar. Leading to international professional certifications in the areas of anti-money laundering and counterterrorism. Folks, for the last 2.5+ years, this is one of their major focuses, so that once they go international, they won't be funding terrorist organizations that are rampant in that region. I know some of you are thinking to yourselves, but what about? Folks, this is directly from the central bank. This is not your coworker telling you anything that you got fired. Go, young lady. In addition,
it conducted 45 specialized workshops on topics related to financial crimes, international sanctions, digital transformation, and cybersecurity.
What? In addition to these 12 training programs, they conducted 45 specialized workshops for their staff, for their private banks, for their currency exchange centers all throughout Iraq, currency exchange companies, so forth and so on topics related to financial crimes, international sanctions, digital transformation, digital asset regulations that they passed, digital asset regulations that the U.S. is looking to sent to the president's desk to finalize. Digital asset regulations that Vietnam passed last year. Resolution 68. Iraq doing the same thing? You don't say. Continue, young lady. These efforts
are in line with the legal framework governing the work of the Banking Studies Center and its role in addressing the challenges of compliance with FATF, Basel and IFRS requirements, thereby enhancing the governance of the banking sector and improving the readiness of Iraqi banks to integrate into the
into the international financial system.
financial
Go ahead.
system. Mhm.
If you could read that last part again, Basel III requirements, thereby enhancing the what?
Governance of
Continue.
the banking sector and improving the readiness of Iraqi banks to integrate into the international financial system.
And what's the date of this press release directly from the Central Bank of Iraq media office?
January 20th, 2026.
Folks, ladies and gentlemen, the Central Bank of Iraq and their actual press release is telling you what they've done, where they're at, 98% complete with training. What they've done is 12 training programs and 45 workshops, specialized workshops, all centered around reforms, international sanctions, financial crimes, digital transformation, anti-money laundering, anti-terrorism activities to tighten up their banking system in Iraq. And also the requirements for Basel III, which is the banking sector of assets that will support a country and the currency, thereby enhancing the governance of their banking sector and improving Iraq's readiness to integrate into the international financial system.
Mm-hmm.
Directly from the source, what they're telling you. Now, folks, there are other steps that Iraq still and continuously will make. The World Trade Organization is a very key milestone as well. Nonetheless, Iraq is telling you they are doing everything possible in preparing the readiness to integrate into the international financial system, folks, is the integration of the Iraqi dinar into the international financial system. The integration of the dinar into the international financial system, they will have it. It's expected to have an international rate, which many of us are waiting for. Now, we will continue with more. That's directly from. Oh, then we've shared some pictures right from the central bank and their press release of the central bank governor and his colleagues that are meeting. We're meeting to talk about the international integration of the dinar into the international banking system. Now, we will go into more directly from the sources that Goldilocks is sharing. Now, Vietnam. Floor is yours, young lady.
So the first two and the last two, correct?
That's correct. Vietnam's currency, folks, she's going to read to you Vietnam's currency trajectory, aligning with monetary policy and trade dynamics. There goes that word again, trade. Currency evaluation like to be the RV is like to be priority of the second Trump administration, larger part to the trade deficit. Here we go. Trade dynamics in the Vietnamese dong. Go ahead, young lady.
Vietnam's Vietnamese dong largely follows the patterns described in the above Forex article, where monetary policy drives rapid shifts and trade flows exert longer-term influence through supply and demand.
Through what?
Supply and demand.
That's what I thought you said. Go on, girl.
Monetary policy influence. The State Bank of Vietnam manages a controlled float regime, often tolerating gradual depreciation to support growth and exports while intervening to curb excessive weakness.
Folks, this is where Vietnam was able to continuously devalue the Vietnamese dong because it was profitable for them to do so. For those that are listening to this for the first time, this call, Many of us that are here, many folks that are here, seen and heard it plenty of times before, how Vietnam, Goldilocks shared it right from the sources of how Vietnam was able to devalue their currency for so many years, for so long, for so many decades, because they utilized the US dollar in trade mostly and not the dong, not their own currency. This is how countries around the world have been able to also devalue their currencies, because they used the US dollar mainly in trade. But as the article directly says, currency revaluation likely priority of the second Trump administration. But the weakening of the dollar is changing this. Countries are no longer, see, the US dollar is no longer that pretty cute, attractive greenback, because it's getting weaker. Countries now are being forced to utilize their own currencies instead of the weakening dollar. Their currencies are beginning to go up in demand. This is whereby they will use their currencies through trade. That is what strengthens the value of their currencies in the open market. I know some of you are hearing this shit like, oh my God, I don't understand this. This is not what I heard. But when you go directly to the source, instead of listening to somebody who told you, like a coworker, that you're fired, you're able to go to the source and get the actual information. That's all we're doing, is just sharing it from the source. Go, young lady.
In 2025 to 2026, a stronger U.S. dollar, higher U.S. interest rates, creating unfavorable differentials, and domestic accommodative policy have pressured the dong downward. Pause. The SBV has sold dollars to stabilize the rate, with announcements and interventions causing quick market reactions. This reflects monetary policy as a primary, immediate driver, with expansionary leanings, low rates for growth, contributing to moderate weakening amid inflation control. Skipping down to the bottom.
And let me explain what that is, folks. See, this is where the shift must be, is a sort of like a recalibration of a country's currency so that it can find its new value, its new rate. This is why the pressure, the volatility has occurred, whereas the stagnation of consistent depreciation is no longer prevalent. But now, especially through the tariffs, now also through Vietnam's monetary reforms, the pressure is being put on, and now also the weakening of the dollar. Now that we're moving into Basel III, the new digital banking system, currencies will begin to shift. They have to. It's inevitable, because they have to find their new home. Their new home is their new rates, and their new home, they'll be moving periodically, because it's already, Goldilocks is already showing us, but from the sources, just like two calls or 2 weeks ago, where certain countries have already announced that they're going to float their currencies, meaning they're going to float their currency exchange rates. Go ahead, young lady. You can go down to the next one.
The last of this article,
Yes.
you mean? Okay.
Overall,
Overall, Vietnam is on a similar trajectory. Monetary policy triggers faster changes, while persistent trade surpluses offer counterbalancing longer-term support in the Forex market. I have said for a very long time to watch the water. It still holds true, as you see in the above article. Now it is time to watch monetary policy changes as well. When these two come together, we will be there.
See, the monetary policies, folks, it provides the healing to the currencies and their policies, what these countries have done historically to depreciate the value of their currencies, to not have reforms in place. Now they have the reforms in place. Now they have the monetary policies in place. Now we have the new digital banking system in place. now the monetary policy and their reforms meet, things will begin to move. Well, many of the firms that are out there, they find it the wealth advisory firms are already advising their clients of what's coming. Currency stabilization. Now we're going to go into stabilizing of these currencies, which is what's needed to provide the support and foundation for a currency to go up in value. Go ahead, young lady.
Currency stabilization, increased trade flows, and potential appreciation. When a country's currency stabilizes, meaning reduced volatility, controlled inflation, and restored investor confidence, it often signals improved economic fundamentals. This stability, combined with rising trade inflows, such as increased exports, foreign investment, or remittances, can create conditions for the currency to appreciate through basic supply and demand dynamics in the foreign exchange market.
Mm-hmm.
In a floating exchange rate system, currency value is determined by market forces. Greater trade flows typically boost demand for the domestic currency. Foreign buyers need it to purchase exports, while inflows like foreign direct investment or capital form trade surpluses increase purchases of local assets. Higher demand with supply relatively unchanged or constrained pushes the currency's value upward, or appreciation. Currency stabilization enhances this process. It attracts more foreign capital by lowering perceived risk, further increasing demand. Stable environments also encourage sustained trade growth, as businesses gain predictability for long-term contracts and investments.
You see here, folks, when a country's currency, when a country has monetary policies in place that stabilizes their currency, it creates a flies on dung, white on rice environment, whereby foreign investors say, Iraq, you have a monetary policy in place that stabilizes the dinar. So I might have some confidence investing in your country, because before it was just the wild, wild west with your currency and your monetary policy. You had no structure. Vietnam, you were just constantly devaluing your currency because you were just ripping the U.S. off on the water through your trade policies. Venezuela, you were just enjoying having the largest oil reserves in the world and having a kamikaze leader. Folks, these countries around the world can no longer do what they were doing before. It's not even possible in the new banking system, because the technology of the new banking system and artificial intelligence, whether you like it or not, is going to assure currency values and currency rates are accurate. It's all digital with no human intervention. That was the problem. That's why so many of these countries have been able to consistently devalue their currencies for centuries, because humans, people with agendas, with weaknesses in the mind and the heart and the spirit, continuously devalued their currencies, choking the rates, choking the values, and choking the people of their countries, because they were able to get away with it. Not possible in the new system. Go ahead, young lady.
A resulting trade surplus, exports exceeding imports, reinforces appreciation, as net inflows create excess demand for the currency. However, appreciation is not guaranteed or unlimited. Central banks may intervene to prevent excessive strengthening, which could hurt export competitiveness. Stronger currencies make exports pricier abroad and imports cheaper, potentially narrowing the trade surplus over time, a natural self-correcting mechanism. Overall, stabilization plus robust trade inflows often provide a strong foundation for appreciation.
Appreciation of the currency rates, ladies and gentlemen.
Mhm.
That's what this means. Appreciation means appreciation of the rate. Go ahead, gentlemen.
As seen in emerging markets that recovered from crisis through better policy and export growth.
As seen in emerging markets that recovered from crisis through better policies and export growth. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not aware, if you have DINAR, you have an emerging market currency. DINAR, you have DOM, BullionVault, just about most of them, emerging market currencies.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to get into the money, into the banking system. Now, I used the terminology whales the other day. I had to use that terminology of whales pumping money into the new banking system because that is a term that most of people in the DINAR community understand. However, that term I used was just so that you can relate. But when you have institutional investors, the largest money institutions in the world that literally move the markets. When I say that, I mean the global financial markets. They move forex, currencies, trade every single day in the trillions. For those that may not be aware, forex is a multi-trillion-dollar a day industry. Transactions literally in the trillions daily in forex. There are institutional investors, major global investors that are above, way above, in fact, not even on the radar screen of a dolphin or a whale. BlackRock, for example, and many other competitive and comparative institutions are big money investors that are pumping money into the global banking system. Whether or not you have a liking for any BlackRock, Fidelity, or any of these other large institutions, it does not matter. Your feelings are not taken into consideration when it comes to finance. This is being done with or without any of our feelings, any of our political affiliations, any of our opinions of whether a entity, institution, person, individual is good, bad, indifferent, doesn't matter. Nothing can stop what is coming in the new banking system. No matter who you vote for, no matter who you like, dislike, no matter who you believe, don't believe, it does not matter. The only people that win in an investment are those who understand to not have feelings in finance. If you allow someone to impose feelings or opinions on a company, an individual, it doesn't matter. You got to realize something I'm going to tell you. Many of the large institutions in the global financial world are responsible for the outlets, media, social media, whatever, to influence your opinions, even against them. Why? You don't think those that have the most money, the 1%, don't want to keep the 99% fooled and bamboozled? They have an unlimited amount of money. They would rather you be fooled than for you to be schooled. They will tell you that their own products and their own businesses and their own agendas is something that you should not get into. Their own investment ideas you should not invest. You should not be a part of. Why? Because that makes more for them. The less of you is the more for them. So when you see here directly from BlackRock, oh my God, that's the dark, they're the demon, they're the devil. BlackRock and many others are actually putting pumping trillions into the banking system from which you will go and exchange your currency and you will become wealthy. Are you going to go and exchange and be like, oh no, I don't like that company that pumped all that money into the banking system. I don't want to exchange my currency. You going to say that? Nope. You're going to gladly exchange your currency and be on your merry way. BlackRock's 2025 thematic outlook. This is a press release. We had a press release from the Central Bank of Iraq. We got one from BlackRock, and there's many others. This is just one of them. Released on January the 21st, marks a notable evolution in the firm's perspective on digital assets. Remember, we got digital assets coming from the Trump administration in the U.S. banking system and all around the world that is going to back every paper currency from which many of us will go and exchange and become wealthy. The report from the world's largest asset manager. Yes, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager. And this is not an opinion, an endorsement by Goldilocks, myself, or anyone of any particular firm. This is just bringing you direct information from the sources about what's happening that indirectly affects the currency revaluation. This report from the world's largest asset manager, meaning BlackRock, overseeing more than $10 trillion, with some sources citing figures upwards of 14 trillion. Yes, they manage over $14 trillion in assets. Explicitly frames tokenization, meaning BlackRock, framing tokenization and cryptocurrency as key themes driving global markets. These are the key themes, folks, that will be responsible indirectly for the wealth for many of us, because they're pumping this money into the banking system. It positions blockchain technology, the new banking system, and tokenized assets as emerging infrastructure for modern finance, enabling new ways to access and invest in traditional asset classes, rather than viewing them primarily as speculative vehicles. Currencies are traditional asset classes, folks, that are considered speculative vehicles. The document highlights cryptocurrencies like, I'm not going to name them. People get, oh my God, these coins. Bitcoin, Ether, stable coins, noting a rapid growth of products such as BlackRock's Bitcoin Trust, described as the fastest growing exchange trade product in history. I wonder if you were told to the certain investments you should not invest in. Don't dare. Meanwhile, they're blowing off the roof. They got you. They put out the media outlets. They put out some of your favorite people to tell you don't invest in XYZ because that gave them more. It's like sitting at the table. You got a plate of food, and you offer someone you got 3 pieces of chicken on your plate, and you offer someone sitting there, you want a piece of my chicken? And say no. You're like, good, that's more for me. So it's like biting into a chicken leg, saying, oh man, that chicken leg don't taste good. You don't want none of that. And your friend, your spouse, someone say, man, you don't like it? Nope, it's nasty. I don't want it either. Meanwhile, you go and tear that plate up. These major investors, these major money players, they control the media outlets to tell you to poo-poo on the investments and the products that they own, so that they can have more of it.
Yeah.
You believed it. But I want to tell you this so that you can be educated, to understand differently, to have a shift in your thinking. I'm not telling you how to think. I just want to encourage you to have a shift in your thinking. Because if I encourage you to have a shift in your thinking, it can empower you and also inform you to be prepared for more wealth opportunities and investments. Timing of the change, the shift, is already underway in the first half of 2026. These big money players that are pumping money into the banking system, from which many of us will benefit when the revaluation of currencies begin to start popping off. The outlook itself was published in the mid-January release, reflecting BlackRock's current view. Folks, these are the people that move trillions in the banking system and Forex daily. You don't think they know what they're doing? Impact on the financial system. This represents a meaningful and step forward transforming global financial systems as we know it. Did you just not hear that Iraq is planning to integrate into the international financial system? You don't think Iraq knows what these major players are doing? I said Wales. This ain't no Wales. Not in the sense of what you've been told. These are the actual money players pumping trillions into the banking system. They transact trillions daily. Folks, in currencies, trillions daily. Continue. Based on market analysis entering 2026, smart money. Here we go. Folks, these are the institutional investors. These are the wealth advisors that many of the folks that are on this call and that have been following Goldilocks, Wiley, and myself for the last year and a half have established relationships with these actual institutional investors who are the ones that transact in Forex daily. Based on market analysis entering 2026, smart money, institutional investors, central banks, and hedge funds is actively rotating its currency portfolio away from the US dollar, favoring international emerging market currencies and commodity-linked currencies due to anticipated Fed rate cuts and structural shifts. Folks, there is a global shift away from the US dollar. When you have, this is why I stated the other day to follow the money. When you have this institutional investors, central banks, and hedge funds rotating its currency portfolios away from the US dollar and towards emerging market currencies, your dongs, your dinars, your bolivars, so forth and so on. Follow the money. Follow the money so you can get your honey. See, this is why we have many of our members who they're institutional investors that they have relationships with have been telling and sharing through newsletters, encouraging their clientele to pay attention to emerging markets, because that's where the institutional investors are pumping their money into. Why would they be pumping so much money into emerging market currencies? Why are they running away from the US dollar, the weakening US dollar? See, this reminds me the other day when I posted about trillions of dollars. I'm going to give you guys a little quick education. Trillions is a lot of money, of course. Quadrillion is a lot of money, of course. Just for a quick education, I'm going to post this into the room right at the bottom. How many zeros are in a trillion? 12. How many zeros are in quadrillion? 15. Think about it, folks. It doesn't even take a quadrillion. See, this is gonna cause many of you to question some things, and that's good. This is good for your critical thinking skills. If someone thinks that it's going to be that they've seen a bank account with 72 zeros in it, and that's going to be responsible for funding the RV, I'm going to show you this here. Okay, money, supply and demand through the open markets is what is going to cause rates to move up. The money that's being pumped into the banking system by these whales. Again, I say whales because that's what the language many even understand, but they're not really whales in the context of what you've heard. These are the real money players who move the markets, who move currency daily in the trillions. Peculiar Ram, if you can come back to the mic real quick, please, if you don't mind. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yes.
You see this screenshot I just posted into the room?
Yes.
How many zeros are in quadrillion? It's 15, right to the side
15,
of the 10.
yes.
You'll see the
Yeah.
number.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, now, folks, it doesn't take a quadrillion to quote unquote. I'm going to say this again. Quote unquote. I'm going to say this again. To quote unquote fund the RV. Less than 1% of the world's population have currencies or are aware of the revaluation. Less than 1%.
Mm-hmm.
So 15 zeros in quadrillion. How many zeros in a quintillion?
18.
How many zeros are in sextillion?
21.
21 zeros. In septillion, how many zeros?
24.
How many in octillion?
27.
How many zeros in nonillion? I know some of y'all like, what? I ain't never heard this before. Nonillion. Yeah, go ahead.
30.
How many zeros are in a decillion?
33.
So there's something going around with telling you they saw a bank account with 72 zeros going to fund the RV. What the what? What the what?
Pause.
Folks, you need to go to the source. Sources. In fact,
Yes.
let me go ahead and drop into the room for education directly from. All you got to do is do searches, folks. Don't believe everything. Don't believe your coworker that told you he was fired. Go to the source. I just dropped it into the room. All you gotta do is a quick do it. Everybody's on AI now. Everybody going to Grok, Google. All you do is ask how many zeros is in something to tell you.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, overall stabilization plus robust trade, Goldilocks sharing and inflows often provide a strong foundation for appreciation in currency value, as seen in emerging markets that recovered from crisis through better policies and exports. Ladies and gentlemen, as we read directly from the source, the political article from the Trump administration, currency revaluation, yes, the RV is likely to be Trump's priority in his second administration, large in part to the trade deficit. This is in the weakening of the dollar. There is no secrets. There is no boss. There is no coworker telling you. You don't need someone to tell you anything. If you're not going to believe a coworker to tell you were fired, and you want to go directly to the source, you should do the same thing with your investment.
Yeah.
See, your job, you might be paid by the hour, you might be salary. Whatever it may be, it is not your legacy. Your investment is a part of your legacy. If you are one that would go to the source of which is your boss, why would you not want the source for your investment, which is a legacy? You picked up what I'm putting down. I know, Peculiar Man.
Absolutely. I hope everyone else is.
Beautiful folks. Again, I hope that each and every one of you are safe and sound amidst this storm coming. We pray for your safety. We pray for your recovery if anyone is affected in any way, shape, or form. Folks, I hope this call tonight was able to educate just one of you to understand. Let me tell you this before we go. Each and every one of you, this blessing is yours. You need to own it. You should own it. I shouldn't say you need to. You should own it. You were all born for this moment. The revaluation, there's a spiritual revaluation before there's a financial revaluation. I hope that every last one of you are able to understand and know how very special you are. You're so special that God has blessed you to become aware of this life-changing opportunity for you and your family. I just would highly, highly encourage you to own it enough, to show God enough that you are grateful enough, like you would go to God as the source for your healing, for your blessing, for your answers. Why would you not return that same energy for your investment and go directly to the source? God is giving you the source of information. God is the source giving you the almighty creator source. As it's written, ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. Folks, all you got to do is go to the source. Knock on the door. It's already open. Take it. Enjoy it. Be well, beautiful folks. Next week, Goldilocks is going to be sharing some powerful information that is going to be very informative. Very, very informative. Everyone be safe. Be calm. We love you, folks. Be well. Ciao.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Freedom Fighter. Thank you for tuning into our channel, Goldilocks Global Banking News. Everybody knows that Goldilocks is the #1 source for the RVGCR. People from around the world tune in to see what Goldilocks is sharing on the RVGCR. Don't miss your chance and get your latest updates every day. So like, share, and subscribe to this channel to get your daily podcast from the Goldilocks articles on the RVGCR. Brought to you by Freedom Fighter.